All right, good morning everyone. I hope you're well and welcome. Thank you for having us here on the MFAX stage. I'm Jason Tonelli and with me here is Jess Howes. And we're here to talk about a very important topic, which is around shame and emotion and resilience. So we thought we'd get on here and have a chat. A bit of a heads up. We're going to be talking about things at work and times at work which can be difficult. So, if you want to contribute, there are a few polls and they are all anonymous. Please feel free. However, if you just want to sit there and reflect, that's okay too.
This is a really big topic, so I think we need to sense check it before we jump in, JT. Can everyone bring out their phones? We're going to do a quick poll and we promise your responses are anonymous. We really want to know, so in the past year, which of these moments have made you feel vulnerable at work? You can select more than one. So what are the options? When I received critical feedback in a group setting, when I made a mistake on a client presentation, when I felt overlooked for a promotion or a development opportunity, when I felt overwhelmed by the workload, when I asked for help on something I'm expected to know, and when I shared a personal struggle with my manager. Right, so results are coming in. This is a good start, JT.
It is.
Okay, a few of you feeling overwhelmed by workload, some stuff about promotion and development. Great, I think we've got the right topic, JT. Let's go.
Me too. Thanks for that. So, talking about being vulnerable, right? So in media and advertising, we collectively celebrate the wins. In a couple of weeks, we'll be celebrating the MFA awards, right? The campaign that breaks the internet, that pitch victory that saves the year or the quarter for a business. But behind every single success story, there are moments as individuals where our emotions are nearly derailed. And I've had many, many vulnerable times in my career. From sending out an email to the wrong person, hello, reply all, to, yeah, we've all been there, right? Or not turning off mute when I'm working from home and I'm trying to help my kids do Lego while I'm on a client pitch, right? But one real moment stands out for me, which was 22 years ago. And 18 months into my very first job. Me and my team and the entire agency I was working at the time was called into the boardroom. Didn't know why, and the CEO walked in from Sydney. And we're like, okay, this is interesting. And he started to ramble on about, we've had an interesting year, hasn't been great, etc., and then he dropped a couple of bombs. We've just lost one of our big accounts, and we're going to have to let a couple of people go. And in that moment, you start to go, okay, this is interesting. Then he proceeded to point to 6 people in that room in front of the entire agency. I think at that time, I was one of those 6 people. I can confirm that I was one of those 6 people. But in that moment, the world stopped. I blanked out. And like a Charlie Brown cartoon, all I could hear from that moment on was womp, 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 womp. But a few things happen to you as an individual in a moment like that, right? When shame arrives. Emotionally, you start to feel either rage, numb, or helpless. Physically, you get a tight chest or you feel heat rising through here in your neck. And physiologically, your body is drenched in something called cortisol.
So as an industry, we've still got work to do when it comes to putting our people and our well-being first. We're starting to recognise that the high pressure, high stakes nature of our work, the pitch losses, the feedback sessions, the 360s or the contract reviews can profoundly impact our well-being. And so for decades, we've recognised that physically, there's legislation in place that protects us against a physical injury. And now finally, we're having a conversation that says you can sustain a mental injury too. So that's the conversation about psychosocial safety. Hands up if you know or you've heard this word. Brilliant. This is brilliant. Psychosocial safety recognises that well-being at work relies on proper consideration around things such as leadership skills, job design, ways of working, how effective your manager is, etc. And so they're key environmental factors that preserve our well-being at work. Today's not about those issues. Today we're going to focus on an important step to protect against them, which is learning to truly connect with our people. So our work is full of moments where we feel uncomfortable. I think we've just seen that. We feel vulnerable. Our industry has high highs, low lows, and the expectation that we will stay calm on the surface, unruffled, mostly for our clients, while we paddle madly underneath the surface. And we will all inevitably, in some shape or form, feel very uncomfortable at work. Whether it's receiving that negative feedback, feeling overlooked for a promotion, sometimes I feel embarrassed, frustrated, guilt, or angry. But over time, without intervention, these feelings can snowball into shame.
So, one of the world's leading shame experts, and she would call herself a shame researcher, is Brené Brown. And she defines shame as the intensely painful feeling that we're unworthy of love and belonging. And here's the truth. Shame thrives in silence. It convinces us that we are alone. It whispers, you're not enough, and that you don't belong here. Now, not all difficult emotions are shame, although they can really snowball and lead us there very, very quickly. For example, when I miss a deadline, I might feel frustrated. But if I start telling myself that I'm not good enough, that's when shame appears.
Which is why we really need to figure out how to have these conversations, especially in our industry. So there's a broad spectrum of negative emotions at work, and you'll see some stuff here. We're not going to get into the detail, but we do need to recognise that cumulatively over time, if we're experiencing these and someone's not holding space for us to go through that, it can dip into shame, and that's really around identity and quite identity rocking. So we're going to try something. Let's try this. It's going to be a couple of common scenarios that we will talk you through, and we want you to get your phones out again and tell us what's the main emotion you're feeling in these scenarios. So, scenario 1, and this might have happened yesterday. You received critical feedback in a client whip. Today, yesterday, whenever. How are you feeling? What's the main emotion you're feeling in this moment? Right. So a lot of embarrassment, some fear and anxiety, a little bit of anger there. Really interesting. Okay, scenario 2. Ouch, you're dropped from the pitch team the day before the pitch. How are you feeling? What's coming up for you? What's the main emotion? Embarrassment, disappointment, frustration, anger, or fear and anxiety. Thank you for sharing with us. As we can see, there's diversity. Every scenario is going to bring up different things for all of us, and so we really need to make sure that we're talking about this in our teams so it doesn't snowball. So how do we do this?
So, great question. The first thing we need to do is define the difference between sympathy and empathy. Because typically as humans, we're sympathetic to one another and to ourselves, not empathetic. So, leaning on Brené Brown again, here's a very short video on the difference between sympathy and empathy.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, "I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me." Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Very wise words. And to give you guys some tips, we thought we would share some things for the individual and the leaders in the room to help you. So we've come up with an acronym, and it's the same for both, which is LIFT. The first thing you need to do is listen to yourself. Second, identify it. Third, face it. And the fourth is to take space. Now let's get into them really quickly. To listen to yourself is to notice what you're feeling, be that embarrassment, frustration, shame, anxiety. Pay attention to how it shows up physically, right? And then start to think about step 2, which is identifying it. When the emotions surface, the one thing you can do that helps is to name it. Naming them immediately reduces the emotion's power over you. The third one is to face it through connection. Find a trusted colleague, your team member, your manager or your work bestie, and say it out loud. "I'm embarrassed because I completely missed the mark on that presentation." Vulnerability shared is vulnerability diminished. Now, one of the last things we're going to ask you to do today. For 30 seconds, turn to the person next to you, and what we want you to do, you're going to feel super uncomfortable, but do it anyway. All right, if I put that photo on there, you can do this. All right, is tell them a time that you failed at work. Not why you failed, not what happened, just this happened and it sucked. Go. All right, we've got you back. I hand it over to you guys, and now I'm not going to get you back. Thank you for doing that, everyone. Good chat. Come on, Megan. I'll start calling you all out. So I'm going to ask the question, how did that feel? It feels a little bit different to do something like that, but at the same time, it feels a lot better to get it out and have someone you can trust rather than keeping it in. And the last thing is to take some space. Don't rush to fix it. If you think back to that video, it's about asking for space to be held for you and to know that one mistake doesn't define the rest of your career.
That was so cool.
It was
Seeing everyone
really
talk.
cool.
Well done. Very quick show of hands. Who's a leader in the room? Who manages a team? Even just one person? Brilliant. Okay, what's our role as a leader? So media directors, agency heads, your next move is crucial. Leadership is clearly not just about strategy and execution, it's about relationships. And relationships are clearly built on trust and human connection. So when someone in your team is struggling or facing a positive setback, you've got a choice. You can reinforce the shame spiral, or you can help them rewrite that story into one of resilience. The most common thing I see in my role as a people lead in this industry and other industries is leaders looking away in those hard moments, pretending everything's fine or downplaying the impact of something, sometimes even offering a sandwich. They don't do this for a lack of wanting to help. They just don't have the skills, or they don't know how to start or where to start. And very often they just don't have the capacity, or they think they don't have the capacity to go there. But empathy isn't soft, it's strategic. And so it's what allows us to see beyond the surface into the missed deadline and beyond the quiet Teams call and into the real lives of our people. So, in the spirit of being vulnerable, one of the hardest moments for me in my career was returning to work after the birth of my daughter. A new job, a new boss, a new environment, 2 crazy kids at home, wanting to get runs on the board. My head was absolutely spinning and I felt like I was achieving nothing. But I was lucky enough to have a leader who did this. Lift. How do we lift as leaders? Lean in, inquire, find a connection, and time. This is so important. Lean in. Notice what is off. I've noticed you haven't been yourself today. Don't look away. I've noticed you keep bringing up last week's meeting. What's going on? Inquire. Be curious. What else is going on for this person at home or at work? Have we really done everything to set them up for success? Have they had the right training? Is the team resourced properly? I know you're all nodding. These are common things in our industry. Find a connection. No sandwiches. Remember, I know what it's like down here. You're not alone. And time. Please hold space generously, without judgment, allowing for recovery and resilience. Don't jump in to fix it. Don't restructure the team temporarily because there's a temporary blip in the delivery of that work. Pause. Let them figure it out on their own and be there for them. As people leaders in this industry, this is the gold standard. If we can create environments where we can do this, where people feel safe to share bold ideas, admit mistakes, and learn from failures, and in these moments, leaders listen, connect, and hold space for their people, then we're not just going to be meeting wellbeing and psychosocial standards, we're going to be creating something incredible, which is agencies where people don't just survive the industry, they reshape it. So here's a challenge to you all. Next time these emotions bubble up, lift. So as an individual, listen to yourself, identify them. It's okay to have them. Face them, take some space. And as a leader, so critically, lean in, inquire, and find a connection and give them time.
So, a little bit of homework for you all. Yes, we're giving you all homework and we know you're all very stressed and overworked at the moment as well. In the next week, practice step 3 with someone. Share one struggle, be vulnerable, and just see what happens. If you're feeling brave, feel free to tag us on LinkedIn and we promise you we'll respond with empathy and no judgment. This is how we rewrite the industry narrative from one of surviving to one of thriving. This is how we transform our most challenging moments into the foundation for disruptive and imaginative work. And this is how we create the conditions for our people to be happy and to do the best work of their careers. Thank you.